Hi there, YouTube. This is the Magnus, bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. This time again, I chose to play as the Greenskins. My opponent elected to bring the Beastmen. And this build is pretty much what I've settled on. Now, there's one or two things I'm thinking about swapping out, and we'll talk about that. But overall, I've been pretty pleased with the results I've gotten. But I'm going to run into a tough fight here. I have 4 Black Orcs in the center. And then to the side of them, I have nasty Skulkers. And then on the outside, on each side, I have 2 Orc Biggins for a total of 4. Way in the rear here, I have the Night Goblin Shaman. My little leadership group is the Night Goblin War Boss, along with 2 Goblin Big Bosses. So Goblins are running the show. And then out here on the left flank, I have 2 units of the Squig Herd. Let's take a look and see what my opponent did. First of all, he kind of laid it out in a different way. Maybe he forgot about these guys, I'm not sure, but kind of has them out on the flank. 2 Gorbals and Malagor the Dark Omen with the ability to summon a Cygor, which he already has a Cygor on the field. And then his front line is 5 units of Goreherd with shields, and then behind that he has 2 units of Minotaurs. So let's go ahead and get this party started. So obviously my lack of range is going to make me have to push, and the fact that he has a Cygor is going to make him want to turtle, and that's pretty much how this thing's going to start out. Now what I like about this build is obviously Black Orcs are just fantastic, and having 4 of them in your center really gives you a solid anchor to build around. And also, these guys are going to tend to stick around a good deal. They have great leadership for a greenskin unit. So they're going to give you time to do interesting things with your other units, or get into the position you need to be. The Orc Biggins are great against infantry, and then of course with Bigger and Arter they're good against large, so they kind of play a double role, and that's why I keep them out on the flanks, because as you see I have no traditional cav. So this allows me to attack cavalry or defend against cavalry, and then if there isn't any or none near them, they're a great help in the infantry fight. The little leadership group here, I like the Night Goblin War Boss just because he's cheaper than the Orc War Boss, and he rides a giant cave squig, which, if that's not badass, I don't know what is. And with the 2 spiders together, they're 3 little sneaky jerks that do great damage. I just like the feel of it as well. So of course his Cygors are going to be chucking rocks here. 6 kills and 9 kills so far. The good old 69, gotta love that. Unless you're getting it from a Cygor, I don't think anybody wants that. So let's see, he's chucking his rocks at my Black Orcs. Good choice. Obviously the most expensive and dangerous thing on the field, especially considering he does not have any elite infantry. He does have, the Minotaurs are monsters, but they do serve in a lot of ways like elite infantry, because they're armor piercing, and they do quite a bit of damage. They're tough creatures. So you see my nasty Skulkers somehow get ahead of the group here, so they're going to get in there and start fighting. They're a very unique unit in that when they're winning, their stats go way up, like you're seeing right now, and then when they're losing, they go down. This is a good fight for them. Anytime you anticipate playing somebody who's going to have weaker infantry than you, these guys are going to be great, because you're going to get this kind of performance if you look at their stats in the bottom left at a ridiculously cheap price. If you're going to get your butt kicked, though, then you're going to get garbage for $5.50, I think it is a pop. So he's going to send in his Gorbals right after my leadership group. No surprise there. I elect to have my leaders focus on one of the Gorbals and kind of see how this goes, because I am in a lot of ways still in testing mode with this build. I have not fought nearly as many fights with it as a lot of the other stuff I use, and definitely have fought a lot less greenskin fights than other factions. So you're going to see the Minotaurs here get into some damaged Black Orcs. Now, the Black Orcs are tough, but when they've got Traderkin is being cast on, but when they've got these giant Minotaurs on them, it's going to be a tough fight for them. You're going to see that the Minotaurs rack up kills pretty quick. I did not expect that. But it's definitely an interesting thing to know. Now his regular infantry, as you can see, are either fleeing. They're all fleeing. All 5 are fleeing at this point. And I'm going to try to get my Biggins, who I've been wrapping around the edges, onto these darn Cygors, because they do, they've been doing quite a bit of damage, and they also cause terror. So they're not the kind of unit that you want to leave your opponent to have to the end of the battle, because that terror is really going to tear apart your army when your leadership gets low. As you see, my leaders are successful in scaring off one Gorbel, but I had to use a lot of potions and I took a lot of damage. So, Gorbels are just, they're tough. Let's just say that. And anytime you run into these guys, they are going to give you a hard time. I've never seen Gorbels do poorly, with the exception of if you have a ton of arrow units, you can force a Gorbel into a bad position. So my Night Goblin War Boss on his squig is like, let's hippity hop the hell out of here. He's not digging it. So far the power bar is balanced. These Minotaurs are finally getting whittled down, but they did considerable damage to some Black Orcs. Back here, the Cygors are getting close to being worn out here, which is a great thing. Like I said, I do not want him to have access to them in the late game because of their terror. Fear is bad enough. Terror is even worse, especially when you're the greenskins, because besides your Black Orcs, they're pretty much a giant lot of cowards, and you don't want terror on the field, like I said before. So now it looks like it shifts a little bit in my favor, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. But he does find my Night Goblin Shaman, chases him off, but I get one of my Goblin War Bosses in here. He does a little leap over him. So Gorbel showing his ninjutsu skills, and he just beats the crap out of that Goblin Big Boss. So here's when I start to realize I might be in trouble, because, okay, I got rid of the Cygors for the time being, but I don't have anything fast enough to chase them off, really. And, my leadership is a lot more beat up than his. His is more potent, because he's got a Gorbel who just slaughtered my lord. I believe one of my Goblin Big Bosses, or somebody else of importance. So now it shifts back to balanced, and I'm having trouble because look how spread out everything he has is, and it's not really intentional, it's just the way his guys ran, but I'm having a hard time deciding what I should focus on and what I shouldn't. So I decided to just go up here and deal with this Minotaur, because it's right next to the cluster of his army, and look at it, 132 kills at this point. Like, literally every second they're murdering somebody. So I'm going to try to get rid of these guys and then push into the infantry that he has that are returning to the fight. My Night Goblin Shaman's hanging back. I'm trying to get him in here to cast some spells. Over here I've got the remnants of 3 Black Orc units. We're fighting the Gorbel. Gorbel is beating the crap out of all 3 of them and chasing them away, and now I'm starting to get really worried. I've got, virtually everything fleeing or coming back or on its way out. But here in the center, where the battle's happening, I am winning. And this one Goblin Big Boss, who's managed to keep his health and wits about him, is helping a ton to keep these other units in the fight. So we're trying to get rid of them. Then we see, here comes frickin' Gorbel again. So I just decided I've got to get rid of this guy. He's a nightmare. So is the Minotaur. So I'm basically stuck between 2 nightmares here. The Gorbel may not have a lot of kills, but he was killing a lot. He killed 2/3 of my leadership crew. So, and now the Cygors come back. They start chucking rocks. So that's kind of scary, but I did scare off his infantry. So again, it feels pretty even, but I feel like I'm fighting uphill a little bit at this moment. In the center here, Malagor is still untouched. It just can't catch the jerk, and there's been too many other targets that have been extremely dangerous to me. So now here, all my infantry is going to flee on me, except for one really bad beat up Black Orc is going to hang out. I even have to send in the Night Goblin Shaman to try to get rid of this Gorbel. He flees, so does the Minotaurs. So now things are interesting again, and I'm going to send everything after his lord, with the exception of when these guys come back. I'm going to stick them on that Cygor, because these Cygors are killing me while I'm kind of blobbed up going after these leadership units, going after the single entities like the Minotaur and now Malagor. Definitely a problem. So you see I send these guys, they're commanded to go after him. It's going to take them a little while, but in the meantime, the big fight's right here. I think if I can break Malagor, I can win. Malagor retreats, and we get a very hard-earned victory out of that deal. Now, when you look at it as far as men remaining, sure, mine looks a lot better, but the problem was, his big units here, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Let's let's look at the tail of the tape and talk about it. So the Black Orcs did okay. This one did well. The other three not so much. But they were fighting most of the time the Minotaurs, which is apparently quite a tough fight for them. So I'm not too surprised there. The Orc Biggins did okay. They were instrumental in tearing down the Cygors, and they spent a lot of time working their ways around the flanks, so not as much time fighting, so I'm okay with that. Nasty Skulkers did really well against his cheap Gore Herd infantry, so I was very pleased with what they did. The Squig Herd, I brought them in the flank early. I didn't really talk about these guys, but that's because they didn't really have a whole lot to do with the battle. They kind of went in, helped create some shock and awe and some damage on his infantry, and then after that they got beat up pretty bad, or just lost their leadership and decided to bail on me. The Goblin Big Bosses, not a lot of kills here, but they did bring down a Gorbel, and one of them helped bring down the other Gorbel, Malagor. Night Goblin Shaman did his job, and the War Boss died. With a face like that, he will be sorely missed. Looking at how my opponent's army did, the Cygors, and the other one you can't see because it was summoned, they did fantastic. The Minotaurs were excellent against my army. I did not know that about these guys. This is going to affect how I play the Beastmen going forward, potentially. I'm going to want to do some testing, but they may be great against Greenskins because they did great here. The Gore Herd, he had them all ranked up and everything. They were still just not worth it. I think he'd be better off with, say, for the price, you could get one Bestigor and like 5 or 6 Spearmen, and you'd probably be better served. The Gorbels were a nightmare as always, and Malagor was able to keep himself alive to the end. He was able to summon his Cygor, use some magic, so he did well. So good game to my opponent, a very close engagement. I've had a lot of decisive victories with this greenskin build over the Empire, Chaos, and some other factions. So it's definitely a strong build, but I feel this was a really good counter, and I hope we all learned something from it. Anyways, if you did learn something, or if you liked the video, or you just think I'm an awesome dude, smash that thumbs up button, give me some likes, subscribe if you haven't. That way you get my content right away, and it also supports me from the standpoint that, the more subscribers I have, the more influence I have, and that helps a lot. And it also is kind of a benchmark of how well I'm doing. So it's something I watch to see if what I'm bringing is what you guys want. Anyways, until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I will see you on the ladder.